Buenas and half a day to our listeners on Guam and in the CNMI. It's now time for Total Health right here on Joy FM Radio, where your questions get answered by health professionals. If you have any health-related questions, we would love to hear from you. Call your questions and comments in at 472-1111 or text or WhatsApp 686-9999. If you're in the CNMI, please call 323-1113. Welcome everybody to Total Health.
Hi, and welcome to Total Health. My name is Rose Trina Eladoc, and in the studio today, we actually have three guests. We have two guests, and then we have our regular host, Elena Taneva, who's a nurse practitioner, Amber Shironishi, who's a dentist, and then Shion Shironishi, a psychiatric and mental health nurse practitioner. Welcome, everybody.
Well, hello. I am very excited for today's topic, and I need to reveal a secret. We have been planning that for at least half a year because I believe Shion and Amber are very passionate to talk about relationships. The first week I met them, that was like several months ago, they were talking to a young group of people, how they can build their relationships, how they can build relationships in a way that they can honor God and that they can have great relationships, not only between themselves, but also as friends, and potentially building a relationship as a spouse in the future. So I was very excited to hear their seminar, and I invited them in the radio, willing to hear more from them and willing to, just inspire the young people to search for really what is good and what's God's best for them. Well, welcome, Amber. This is your first time in our radio, and Shion has been a regular guest. I'm very excited that I have my friend and, worker in the show today. Hi, Amber. Hi, Shion.
Hey,
Hi, Elena.
how's it going?
Hello. Thank you so much for being willing to be vulnerable. It is not very easy to come and talk openly and publicly about relationships, and we truly appreciate that. Because how can I say, everybody prefers to keep that part in a private way, but we're seeing more and more issues related, obviously, with relationships and social issues at home. 1 in 2 marriages end up in divorce, and I know, Shion, you can tell even more about that as a mental health nurse practitioner. And 52% of the cases that we are dealing with nowadays in the clinic are related to social issues. And we are not a socially inclined health system in the United States, but we have to deal with a lot of that. And part of working towards better social health is to have talks like healthy relationships and even healthy communications. So today it will be one series of 2. This month we'll talk about healthy relationships, and mainly between a boyfriend and girlfriend and spouses. And next month we'll talk about healthy communications, how we can communicate in a healthy way. Mayo Clinic had done a research in which shows that only, unfortunately, 3% of the population in the United States are healthy. And that will take us by surprise, because not only we have to have plant-based or holistic food, but also exercise more than 150 minutes a week, but also to have healthy relationships. And because it's very difficult to build a healthy relationship, I believe it is great to start working on that. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I think it's important, definitely, to start off a relationship really well. And one of the most important things is definitely communication. I know a lot of people ask me, what is a way to have a healthy relationship? And definitely one of the first things I say is we need to be able to communicate well, be honest, and share our thoughts. But I'll tell you right now, it's not the easiest thing. And my wife could tell you that I struggle with that even still this day. But it's something that we've been practicing, and we have learned that it is one of the best ways to have a healthy relationship, for sure.
Yes, I'm so glad that both of you are here today and we can just talk about what is good and what is hard in a marriage. I know you just married, right? It hasn't been even a year.
Yeah. Yes, I feel I have similar sentiments with Shion. It's not easy for sure, but I was just talking with a friend earlier and I mentioned that, it takes work to have a healthy relationship. You could be married for 20, 30 years and have a relationship, but is it healthy? And that's the other question.
Right. We know that in the first year, and I'm very grateful that you're so open about it, down to earth, that it is hard. The first year, it is still the romantic year, the honeymoon year. But I'm willing to see you in 5 years, have this radio show in 5 years, maybe in 10 years, maybe in 50 years. I think, with time, your relationship will grow and with God's help will go even healthier, right? You start from one point and you build it up. But I am very interested to know, before the marriage took place, did you guys have to work out on yourself personally as a person to have you yourself to have godly relationships, to be God-centered before you met the other person? Or did you kind of rely on the other person when you meet them in the future that they may complete you?
Yeah, so I really think that working on your own growth is really essential before you date. We all have some sort of baggage. Maybe you might say I had a really good childhood and everything's great, but I do believe everyone comes with baggage or some sort of challenge that you've had in your lifetime. And it's really good to figure some of those things out as a single person. Because if you don't work those things out and you get together with someone else that is also comes from a different baggage, or they're also coming from different challenges, it's really hard to work together when you guys haven't individually worked it out before meeting together. And so, obviously everyone knows this, but relationship isn't easy. So if you're bringing in problems into this relationship that could have worked out while you're single, it causes more issues. So in our story, it was something similar, how individually we were working on our own lives. And number one is we're working on our relationship with God. And we both were growing with God, and we were doing ministries, and we were really passionate to serve others, and we were figuring out some of the purpose we had that God's given to us, and we're setting up goals that God's given to us. And so we were going in a direction, and it seemed like our direction, because we were working on it with God, that God actually brought those direction together. And that's how we came together. And we were able to complement each other and be able to be strong in the ministry. And so I do think it's benefit to work on your own growth before you get into a relationship.
Yeah, I completely agree. Just a little bit, Shion was sharing a little bit about our story. Personally, I don't think that I would have been ready for a relationship with Shion if I didn't do that hard work, self-reflection, crying in your bedroom, crying out to God, asking God, being open with God, asking him to change certain things about you. I definitely would not be ready for one marriage or ready for be the wife that Shion deserved, as he has also been working on himself. So I think to think about it that way is that God really, I believe, brings people together who are equally yoked, who are in the same stage in life. And that really sets you up for a healthy relationship. When you see there's a huge imbalance in the stability, whether that's morals, values, or even just what you do, what you spend your time doing, when there's such a huge difference in that, it's very difficult to make a healthy relationship work. We're already super different. Like, every single person was raised differently, with different values. So it's already super hard when you both are whole because we're just different people. Yeah, so I think that it's very beneficial to cry out to God, to see singleness as a very special time where you can work on things that you couldn't really otherwise if you're already in a relationship.
But you can't tell that you have reached a very high growth, and that's why now you're ready to mingle together. We still work on issues, right? Even after you get
Right.
married, there's still a place for growth. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, for sure. Definitely I could tell you I'm growing, and like I said earlier, there's things that I struggle with, and Amber is very patient with me, and we try to help each other out. And you could look at it this way. When you're single, you're working on your own growth. And let's just say you end up with someone that didn't experience that, didn't see a need for that person to grow. And then when the person that's wanting to grow and the person's not growing, when they come together, it's really difficult when you're not on the same page. And even if you point out things to the other partner, hey, maybe we could work on this, the person may not be on the same page or may agree with you, which really causes a huge toll in a marriage. But that's one thing that, not saying it's easy, not saying it's perfect for Amber and I, but there is one part that does make it easy, that we both came from individual place where we're like, we want to grow. And so when we got together, got married, we're like still at a place where we're like, hey, let's grow together. And that makes a marriage very, it helps it to flourish more.
So you pull each other up.
Yes.
Forward
yes.
and upward. That is so beautiful. And we'll continue with the rest of our questions for today right after the break.
If you have If you have a question and you want to call it in, call us at 671-472-1111. That's 671-472-1111. In the CNMI, you can call us at 670-323-1113. That's 670-323-1113. You can send us a message via text, via WhatsApp, or Signal at 671-686-9999. That's 671-686-9999. It's free from the CNMI. Don't go anywhere. This is only our first break, and Total Health Live will be right back after the break.
So you say your fuel light came on.
Yeah.
And you thought, no problem, I can make it to the next gas station.
Yeah.
And that was how many miles ago?
About 75.
Uh-huh. So, this your first time in Death Valley?
Yeah.
Joy FM lets you know when their fuel light comes on by asking for your financial support. Won't you help us as we help you and others through the deserts in life?
Si Joe Mossy, and thanks for listening to Total Health on Joy FM. We want to hear from you. Call in with your health-related questions at 472-1111. In Guam or in the CNMI, the number to call is 323-1113. Text or WhatsApp us at 686-9999. And now, back to the show.
Hi, and welcome back to Total Health Live. My name is Rose Trina, and in the studio today we have Elena Taneva, nurse practitioner, Shion Shironishi, psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner, and Amber DDS, Amber Shironishi. In today's topic is healthy relationships.
It is healthy relationships. And, we say that in order to have a healthy relationship, you have to meet the right person at the right time. And before I ask Amber and Shion what they think and how they see what a healthy relationship is, I'm curious. If, Amber, you have met Shion maybe 5 years ago, do you think you would have recognized him as, your life partner? You met
No.
definitely the right person. You met definitely the right, spouse. But do you think that God had to prepare you to get to that point so you can recognize in each other the right person?
definitely. A little bit before the break, I mentioned that I don't even think I would be ready 6 months prior to us starting to date. And I'm very grateful. In While you're in your phase of singleness, you always want to rush to find the right person. But I'm so grateful looking back now that Shion came along when he did, because I definitely would not have been ready for that marriage, whether that's spiritually, mostly spiritually, but also emotionally. And so just remembering that God always has his timing is definitely an important aspect of having a healthy relationship, because as much as we'll try to push on our own, God truly is the person in the back.
Yeah, I could vouch for that. If Amber met me 5 years ago, I don't think she would have been attracted to me. I was still growing, trying to figure things out. I was definitely lost. So, for sure.
You know, in the eyes of everybody, you're that couple that really God had put together very well, because you're so passionate about ministries and you're like working together as a team. And it's just so nice from outside to look at you, how you're growing together, and you're very open for the struggles as well. But before we start listing out things, what it is, you know, what a healthy relation should be and what a healthy relation shouldn't be, this long list of do's and don'ts, what would you tell us? How can you continue having a healthy relationship? What a healthy relationship kind of looks like?
Yeah, I think that one of the things, what it looks like is, and it's going to go back to what we were saying earlier. A healthy relationship should be not, what can you offer me? I think that's sometimes the way we look at marriage is, you know, we want to find this perfect person that's going to make me happy and offer everything that I need and all these things. But I believe God gave us marriage to serve, to love, to learn what it means to be selfless. You know, in the Bible says, husbands, love your wife as Christ loves the church. How did Jesus love? Is a selfless love. So that's where we want to be, is what can I do for my partner? How can I serve her? How can I love her? That's the ultimate place we want to be in. You know, I think that's really important, that mindset that we go into is not what can I get, but what can I give to the person. And when the other person also thinks the same way, I think it does turn out to be a healthier relationship, because we both now want to grow for each other. We want to be a better husband, better wife for each other. And that's just, to me, how you lead to a very successful marriage. Now, yes, we've only been married for not even a year. And so you might say, oh, you're speaking too early, marriage gets harder. But I still think this is the truth. I think this is very biblical. And this is what God wants us to, how God wants us to view marriage, for sure.
I think that Shion just hit it right on the correct spot, because it really is a lot of the times about expectations. We have these wrong ideas, these expectations that we think a relationship, whether that's boyfriend and girlfriend.
The unrealistic expectations.
Yeah, unrealistic expectations.
Yeah.
That we all grew up here in this world, and we see a lot of Disney movies. We see a lot of romantic comedies. I know I for sure have been influenced by that. And so because of that, we have these unrealistic expectations, and it really leads to the wrong view of the purpose in marriage. And I like how Shion touched on this, because we were reading an engagement book. It's believe it's called Ready to Wed, and it's such a good book for those of you who are considering marriage or are engaged. It's called Ready to Wed, and one of the things it made us do was it made us list out our reasons why we wanted to get married. And it really was eye-opening for
Yeah.
us. And some of them were very superficial. Some of them were pretty deep. Like some of them were saying, some of the options were like, because you want security
Yeah.
or you want someone to love. Those options vary. But the main option should be is that we want to push each other towards the kingdom.
Mhm.
We want to be the other person's cheerleader when we see that person's character being more and more like Christ.
Yeah.
And that should be the purpose of marriage.
Yeah, I agree. And then, you know, to me, this is when it gets really exciting to be part of the marriage. It's hard. It's not easy. And I'm willing to admit, you know, to struggle. But when you could see it in this picture, that's when I say, wow, I'm just so happy I'm married with Amber, you know, and who has the same mindset as me. And when we are able to see each other grow, it's just exciting. And we're just working
yeah.
as a team rather than individually. We're like, okay, I'm expecting this, I want that
Yeah.
kind of thing. So that to me is how marriage can be exciting for sure.
Before you got married, were you like best friends or kind of good friends?
I would say we were like best friends.
You'll do everything together, go shopping together,
Yeah.
surfing together.
Yeah,
That-
I feel like she's definitely someone felt like, wow, she's my best friend. I definitely acted normal around her. I felt like I didn't have to fake, and I think that's how she felt too.
That's how I felt too. We weren't friends for a long time. So it definitely started out as acquaintance and it moved towards, wow, like there's no other person I want to hang around this much. Like
Wow.
definitely one of my best friends, to being my best friend. And then someone, okay, I want to get married to this person. I want this person to be a part of my life forever. But it definitely started out with it did not start out fake, basically, is what Shion was saying. It started out very authentic. It was one of the first relationships where I felt like I didn't have to put on a different face than who I am, or to put on a little show of my best personality. We met during interesting times, and I believe it was the start of the pandemic. Not met, we were already acquaintance friends, but
We're getting to know each other
we're getting
more.
to know each other more. And I was just in my same sweats every day studying for school. So he saw the
She was
worst
still
of
attractive.
me. He saw the worst of me, and the nice thing is that we got to know each other with a trusted group of friends. And I really liked that because that made things go in a more slow and organic way.
So you didn't start intentionally to get to know each other with a potential marriage. You were just friends, you were hanging around, and then who started first? Whose thought was first? Like, oh, maybe this is how God is planning for us, to get to know each other more, and that this might grow into something else.
Well, I guess Amber would argue with me. Obviously, we probably have a little bit different stories, but maybe, yeah, I do have to say maybe I did think about it, and it all started because I started with a small little Bible study group, and at first I wasn't gonna invite her, but my really good friend Johnny, he said, no, let's invite Amber. I'm sure she's going to be really interested. So thankfully, because of him, we invited her. She was part of the group. We got to know each other. And when I saw her in the Bible study, I was thinking, man, this girl is awesome. She's authentic. She's passionate about God. She talked about her family a lot. And I could tell her love is really strong for her family and friends and ultimately God. And I just saw a lot of beauty in her, and obviously she's attractive physically, and but I really saw inner beauty in her, which was more attractive to me. That's something I really was looking for in a woman, and so I did pray a lot. I didn't just ask her on a date right away. I really got to know her through that Bible study group, and it was months that we met with that group and got to know each other there. And even outside of Bible study, I would just see her with a group of friends, and I'll just mingle with her and talk to her and with other friends. And it just really was, like she said earlier, it was just very organic. I didn't really force myself to like kind of ask her on a date and so I could get to know her more. I really just got to know her at a friendship level, which was really awesome because I feel like there's a lot of stress these days about asking each other on a date and, you know, just one-on-one kind of moments where that's how you're going to start getting to know each other more kind of thing. But, you know, that organicness really helped me to think clearly. I didn't feel pressure by her, didn't have all these love emotion that was driving me crazy. And I really had time to pray, ask friends for advice. And, you know, just with all that happening, I really got a conviction from God that I really should go for her. So
Amber, so what's your part of the story? We have like only 1 minute before the next break, but
okay.
a short version of it.
Short version is that, you know, you can tell when someone's interested in you. And I could tell from the beginning of our friendship that, I was a little nervous around him because I can tell that we had a good connection. Like you can just kind of tell like with conversation and where you are in life and just how it flows. I'm like, in that time in my life, I was scared because I didn't want a relationship because I was really connecting with God. And in the past, relationships had distracted me from God. So I was like, I don't want another man to come into my life and distract me. So it was really a blessing when I felt the peace from God that he said, you know, just take some time, let it be slow, get to know him better.
That sounds so beautiful. We'll continue right after the break.
If you have a question, go ahead and call it in. On Guam, you can call us at 671-472-1111. That's 671-472-1111. In the CNMI, that's Saipan, Tinian, or Rhoda, call us at 670-323-1113. That's 670-323-1113. You can also send us a message via text, via WhatsApp, or Signal at 671-686-9999. That's 671-686-9999, and it's free from the CNMI. Don't go anywhere. We're only halfway through today's show. Come back right after the break.
Imagine how the world would be if everyone considered giving to be as optional as, say, your next breath. Studies show that having a giving attitude improves mental and physical health. So we encourage you to think of us as part of your healthy lifestyle. After all, we bring you fresh air, living water, and a way to give. We're happy to help you practice good health when you pray for us or send in your gifts. It's not as optional as you think. From Joy FM.
Welcome back. You're listening to Total Health on Joy FM. Call in with your health-related questions to 472-1111 in Guam. If you live in the CNMI, we want to hear from you too. Call 323-1113 or text or WhatsApp us at 686-9999. And now, here's more Total Health.
Hi, and welcome back to Total Health Live. If you're just joining us, we're halfway through today's show, and on today's show, we're talking about healthy relationships. We've got Elena, Taneva, nurse practitioner in the studio, along with Shion Shironishi, psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner, and Amber Shironishi, doctor of dental surgery.
You know, it is so awesome that we can talk on these topics so openly. But I want to hear more. I want to hear the whole story. And I'm already getting, very excited. And I see how God really works in your lives. And I certainly wish that for everybody, that everybody needs to experience this happiness on earth and at least, cherish a good relationship that can bring them closer to God. And what's beautiful about it is that, God does everything for us. when God has a relationship with us, He's doing everything for us in a very selfless way. And what we can do for God back is to do it the same way, as much as we can do things for God. And I'm very pleased that you mentioned the selflessness in a relationship, that you do everything for Amber and Amber does everything for you. Maybe sometimes you forget to take care of yourself, but the other person takes care of you. And now you even have another member of your family, the little gnarly dog that brings more joy to your life. So trying to help, other people that haven't met their partner in life, what would you say? You have had past relationships. Would you agree that it's better to date around, or would you rather advise young people to stay true to themselves, stay focused on God, and when the other person, God brings the other person in life, it would be better than if they try themselves with their efforts to find that one person?
So I guess I would say, this is probably a controversial topic, and people have different opinions about it. So purely, this is my personal opinion. I do think that dating around is probably not necessary. I don't think you don't really see in the Bible it says to date around. And, many times in the Bible you could see that God brought people together. You can see in the beginning, Adam and Eve, Isaac and Rebecca. And so those stories, you could see that God is really trying to lead us into a happy life, a joyful life. And He said, man shall not, it's better for man to be not alone. And so marriage is one of the things that God created. He really loves it when He sees two people could come together. And so I do believe that if we do surrender to God, that God will definitely help you to know who to look for, what kind of person to look for, and if that person is there near you, that He could really show you and convict you. And one of the things for me, I don't know what Amber would say, but for me, I did date girls before Amber, and looking back, I think I could have avoided it. And it was the girl that I dated before Amber, it was after her that I really felt like I surrendered everything to God, my heart, my mind, and I was really willing to grow. And it was at that moment I really did know that God was leading me in my life. I did a career change. I just wasn't happy with my old job, but God showed me, hey, this is actually what I want you to do. So now I'm in the psychiatry field, and I'm really happy. So in those things too, but especially in relationship, He was able to lead me to a healthier place, healthier mindset, healthy boundary. And I do believe it was at that moment that God was able to tell me, hey, Amber is the best fit for your partner, life partner. And I probably could have avoided a lot of heartaches, a lot of dating around, if I just was really willing to surrender it all to God. So.
Yeah, to leave the pen in God's hands to write your love story. Sometimes we think that God is not as romantic as we envision it, and He doesn't know, who we really want to have our life with. But if we leave the pen into His hands, He knows how to write the best love stories. Amber, would you like to add something? Maybe you had past relationships, you've learned something from them. You would advise young people to do certain things, to avoid other things.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think anybody has ever said once they found their life partner that they love and adore. I don't think actually anyone's ever said like, oh, I wish I dated more people.
You're right.
If you think about it that way, it really puts things into perspective. And it's more of like, oh, I wish I didn't date more people and I waited for this one. I think that it's difficult because, we're sinful, faulty human beings, and we want to kind of go on our own plan. And Shion and I have both dated people that we knew we shouldn't have in the past. But we're grateful that God restores all things, and He gives many chances, and He's so merciful and gracious. But I think that the more that we have the mindset of dating around, either to have fun or to increase the chances of meeting the right one, it usually ends up in more heartache than in joy. And I believe that, if we surrender to God and if we have that mindset, then he's going to be able to show us the right one. And that's what I felt with Shion. I actually had never felt, when Shion approached me and he said, he told me his intentions, which I never had any guy do that before. He was so open with his intentions. That was so refreshing. And he told me, hey, I'm interested in you. These are my intentions. If you feel otherwise, then that's totally fine. We can remain friends. But I just want to be honest with you. And I was like, oh, wow, that's refreshing. But when he told me that, I was, again, like I said earlier, nervous because I was really, really close with my relationship with God at that point, and I didn't want any distractions. When he met up with me and told me that, I felt this peace that I have never felt in my life. It was like a calm. And to me, and I had been praying beforehand, like, God, if Shion is the one, then give me that peace. Because I know, as women or just as humans in general, we always know when there's that one red flag that we're ignoring.
Right.
Or there's that.
Or even a pink flag.
Or pink flag or yellow flag, whatever it may be. That we kind of just ignoring it and shoving it into the back of my mind. For Shion, there was none. Not only was there none, but there was the peace, again, like when he approached me with the honesty. Of course, God didn't send me an email saying, Amber, this is the man you're going to marry. So there's a lot of faith to be had. You still have to step out in faith, but you do have that abiding peace and the prayer to go off of, and all of the examples in the Bible to guide you as to who should be the right person instead of just dating around.
Yeah. I think the Amber made a good point about how sometimes we just ignore the red flags. And biblically speaking, spiritually speaking, a lot of times that could be relating to, is this someone that gonna help me to be closer to God? And some of those red flags maybe is not going to. And we end up ignoring those red flags. So if we're really surrendering everything to God and really following his way, we would take those things seriously. And we probably would have said in the beginning, if we were really connected with God, that would have been like, okay, no, we're not going to date this person. And he would have really shown us who the right person is. But, I definitely ignored so many red flags with my past relationships. So
Yes, when emotions take over, it's more difficult to make, good reasoning.
yes.
But what I really like about your relationship, that there were no games. Nowadays, there are so many rules about relationships. Oh, you should do this, or you shouldn't do that, or you should be always playing hard. So because guys like to chase women, all these type of rules, and so many times we do wrong things just because we are advised in the wrong way, or we just don't know how to act. And so refreshing to see that you have been yourself, authentic yourself. You didn't have to play any games, and Shion was very open with you from the very beginning, and he shared his intentions with you. We actually got a phone call. We have a question to you, and the question goes this way: is being married in church more sacred in the eyes of God, and would that result in a healthier marriage than if you marry outside of church? Let's say you marry somebody outside of church, but you have a good connection, versus somebody that's in church.
Oh, okay.
Like, just to clarify, like, is the wedding ceremony in a church, or they're talking about is the person
A believer
and goes to church?
I would go for being a believer,
Oh, okay.
marrying somebody.
That's a believer.
Would it be possible to answer the question in both contexts? Yeah. Because it's possible that it might be what you were also thinking.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So I guess if we were to answer the first part, let's go with the believer and non-believer one first. The Bible talks about, again, Amber mentioned it again in the beginning, but he wants us to be with someone that's equally yoked. And I don't think that was given to us just because. I think he didn't just come up with that rule. He knew that there could be issues if you're not equally yoked. If you believe that there is a God, but then you marry someone that doesn't believe in God, then when you have kids, what are you going to teach them? And, there's going to be a lot of issues there too, arguments about, I want to teach my kids this, but I want to teach my kids this. But not only that, even morals and, the way you live your life, the person may not care about how they live their life, or, maybe they don't really care about how they treat people. Maybe they're okay with being angry at people sometimes, and you're like, no, God teaches us to be kind and caring, but you don't agree on that. So it could cause so many issues in the marriage if you don't have the same belief. And even that's where value and worth comes from too. So if you don't have the same value and worth, it could be really difficult.
Right. Spiritual incompatibility and financial issues are the most common causes of divorce. So it is very important to be yoked, equally. Okay, and then the second question is like the ceremony being in church. What would you say? Would that be important, to make it public, to make it in church, then, maybe making it outside of church, right? Do I get the question correctly? Okay.
That might be the context.
Okay.
If
well, I don't have a correct, I guess, answer on that. But in my eyes, to me, I don't think it would matter too much on the building or the atmosphere, but more on the content of who it's centered around. I know Shion and I had ours in a lawn outside of a hotel, but we wanted it to be all praise and glory to God. We sang worship songs. The pastor told a sermon. So it really, I guess, depends on the person.
And as long as it brings the most glory to God, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Very good. We are coming to our last session. We'll have a short break, and then we'll continue with more on healthy relationships.
If you have a question and you want to call it in the last 15 minutes of today's show, go ahead and call it in. On Guam, you can call us at 671-472-1111. That's 671-472-1111. In the CNMI, call us at 670-323-1113. That's 670-323-1113. You can also send us a message via text, via WhatsApp, or Signal at 671-686-9999. That's 671-686-9999. It's free from the CNMI. Don't go anywhere. We're almost done with today's session, and we'll see you back right after the break.
And we're back with more Total Health. Give us a call with your medical questions. Number to call in Guam is 472 1111. If you're in the CNMI, the number to call is 323-1113. Or you can text or WhatsApp us at 686-9999. Now back to the program.
I guess we didn't have a break for the last one. Sorry about that, guys. It's a glitch. But welcome back to the show. And because we don't have that much time left, let's just jump right back in.
Right. Shion, you as a mental health nurse practitioner, you do a lot of counseling. I'm sure that you do a lot of counseling for people that are struggling in their marriages. Not everybody has an ideal marriage, and there is a learning curve to learn how to really balance and do things correctly. But when you surrender whatever difficulties and hardships you have to God, I know that He is able and more than capable of helping, everyone, every relationship. So would you advise that couples should do a pre-marriage counseling? Would you advise that they would do counseling if they're struggling, even though they might be, church members, they might be going to church and they might feel that their faith should sustain them? Would you advise over counseling than, managing couples managing on their own?
Yeah, so I would definitely encourage that for sure. Even before you even think about engagement, it's sometimes good to have couples counseling to know, where are you heading? Are you compatible to even think about marriage together? And you could do this with not just with counselors. You don't have to do it with therapists, but pastors actually do it. And so Amber and I met up with our young adult pastor back in California, Southern California. There's a church that we were going there, and we met up once in a while, and he did a pre-engagement or engagement counseling with us, and he even had us take a test that showed us compatibility. It was so many pages. I forgot how many pages. I don't know if you remember, but there's so many pages, and it showed us different graph. What is Shion's strong point? What is Amber's strong point? What is Amber's, weak points, and all of these things. And it really helped us to see what are we getting into? What are some concerns? What are some strong points? And surprisingly, and I just say surprisingly because I don't know why. I just thought, oh, maybe we need to work on a lot more. But the pastor did tell us through that test that it showed that Amber and I are pretty compatible. And that was very encouraging to hear that. But not just that, I do feel like the pastor gave us so many good counsels. And even I'll tell you one thing right now, during that time that we were engaged, we were both busy. Amber was in dental school. I was in psychiatry school. And we were just so busy with life. And there was a moment where we got to a point where we could tell we're both stressed. And the pastor actually, we met once and gave us a great advice. He said, you guys need to make sure you guys go on a very intentional once-a-week date. And he told us that that's going to be helpful for you when you get married. He's like, I do that with my wife, and it's very helpful. And I'm going to tell you, that's the best advice anyone's given to us about marriage, because that definitely is saving our marriage right now and helping our marriage to make that time once a week to go on a date. Whether that's dinner or whether that's picnic at the beach or whether that's going swimming or whatever, surfing, that's something that we really appreciate that he shared with us. So counseling is really good. It really helps you to get good advice and prepare you for your marriage. Yeah.
Also, tell them about the halts.
Oh yeah. So another good thing that he educated us on is something called HALTS. It's an acronym. And so in marriage, you're going to have moments where you are going to get into arguments and things like that, but you can avoid it. And he taught us that halts can help us avoid conflicts that's maybe unnecessary. And so that's when you don't want to bring up certain conversation or topics when the partner is feeling certain things. So halts, right? So the first thing is if the other partner's hungry, if the other person's angry, if the other partner is feeling lonely or feeling tired, and the last one is spiritually deficient, you probably should not start a serious conversation with them at that moment.
That was pretty helpful advice as well.
Yeah, and we've used it, and it's been quite helpful for us that if I need to bring up something, if Amber's tired, I'm like, okay, this is not the right time. but I don't suppress it. I don't, I do make sure I share that, but I just know when's the right time to share it.
He lets me take a nap and then we talk.
And she does it for me if I'm hungry.
Or I feed him.
Yeah. If I'm hungry, she feeds me first and we talk.
I know we don't have much time, but I just want to say this because I feel like it's really important. Like Shion said, getting counseling was a game changer, because sometimes as human beings and we like to think that we're right and that we know things already, and that definitely is something that I thought, I'm like, oh, I'm pretty healthy. I grew up, with a good family. Like I have a pretty healthy idea of what relationship. And it really surprised me when certain things that he would do would annoy me or irritate me, and then realizing that I'm actually in the wrong was very important advice given to me by the counselor, because we as humans, we want to change the other person into the person that we are, but God made everybody different. And Shion has these amazing attributes that he has because he's different. Maybe he's a little more introverted. Maybe he processes things in his mind and I process things out loud, and that's okay. Yes, there's going to be things you need to work on that's not okay in each other's personality, but realizing and recognizing the importance of differences and celebrating those and celebrating the good things about your partner is something that we're still learning to this day, because we still want to try to make each other an exact duplicate of yourself, which is never a good idea. But that was really good advice that I got.
And there is a freedom in, when you see the weaknesses in the other person, instead of like pointing them out in the right time, wrong time, that you actually uplift them and strengthen them and encourage them, instead of criticizing them. And I know for a healthy marriage, it's quite important to be able to say, I'm sorry, to be apologetic. And I've heard you, a few times that Shion will say that or you'll say that. And that's really great. Many wives are saying, my husband never says I'm sorry. He never says he's wrong. Mm-hmm. And I can tell him all the time that he's wrong, but he's just not going to listen to me. And I know that it does take some maturity, to get to that point. And I also know that your date days on Wednesday. And so this time maybe you came to the radio.
We're going out to eat right after this.
Yes, I'm sure you have many reasons to celebrate. And that's great that you keep the relationship really warm at all times. Well, did you have to learn each other's love language? Or was it like part of you willing to get to know the other person more so you can kind of love the other person more, help the other person more, serve the other person more? Or is it something that you just learn, both of you, to grow together in loving even more? By being able to love with words of affirmation, to acts of service, to physical touch, and so on.
Yeah, it's definitely good to know the 5 love languages. It's written by Gary Chapman, and definitely a good book to read for marriage. I definitely had to learn Amber's love language, and she had to learn mine, so she could probably tell from her side. But my side is, Amber is number 1 is physical touch. And I really had to learn that because I'm not physical touch. Mine is words of affirmation. I like to receive words of affirmation. So I guess I didn't realize till I actually was with her that I didn't really fully understand what it means to show the physical touch love. As men, you think that's about sexual things, but it's really not. It's just about matter of hugging, comforting. And so one thing that we've learned is, Amber comes home and she's had a hard day. She talks about how it was stressful at work, and the first thing that comes to my mind as a man is I'm going to give her advice, or I'm going to give her some logical reasoning of her day, and maybe that's the way I could help her. And I could see that she's stressing out still and she's not feeling any comfort, and I'm like, what's wrong? I'm trying to help you. And one day I realized that she said, I just need a hug. I just need you to hug me. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm so sorry. I thought you needed some advice, but I didn't realize you just needed a physical touch to feel okay. So I've learned that. And that I was a little bit prideful in the beginning because I was like, no, I'm trying to help you. But I realized I was wrong. And I really tried. I'm still working on it today, to be honest with you. I forget that sometimes, but I still try to work on it. So,
well, I would say really quick before our time is up is that just in the same way as we have to celebrate each other's differences, I have to come to the acceptance that my love language is not his love language. So giving your spouse, your other half, grace when they don't meet or know your love language, that's something that I had to learn. And it's not because he doesn't love me, it's because he just doesn't, that's not how he shows his love. So just, I guess it all goes back to having that understanding that we're different, but we're both so important in God's eyes, and we're both children of God, and to not look down on each other for any differences, but to get to know each other better and learn how to love better.
Do you have moments that you don't talk to each other, or you try, if those moments are coming, just to sit down and negotiate things?
I like to communicate a lot. Maybe over communicate.
There's moments where I feel like I need to step away and think things through. But I mean, I think we could count maybe handful of time where we had to kind of step away and let's just have a moment individually to pray and to think it through what's going on. But most of the times we try to talk it over.
At least before the day is done.
Yeah. And one thing that Amber has learned from someone that's been married for long years, she was told, was never go to sleep with, arguments or upset or fight. It's always good to resolve it before falling asleep. So we really try to follow that advice for sure.
Before our time is over, unfortunately, I would like to share a Bible verse quickly, and maybe you can jump in with another one. With all loneliness, in Ephesians 4:2 says, and meekness, with long suffering, forbearing one another in love, endeavoring to keep the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. There is one body and one Spirit, even as you are called in one hope of your calling. Amber and Shion, I really wish that you will continue being that, calling, and that you will be helping others and young people especially to grow strong in Christ, to have healthy relationships, to encourage them in spiritual purity before the marriage, and really to keep the best, for not the last, but the best for their great marriages that are ahead of them to happen. Thank you so much for being willing to be here and to be like an open book to us to read so we can learn from you. Thank you so much. If you have anything that you would like, just want to share quickly.
No, I just want to say thank you for having us here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, we're just very passionate about this, and please keep us in your prayer too, because we're still growing our marriage.
Yeah, it's not easy as, both as full-time professionals and a little puppy at home. It's not easy, but, with man, it's impossible. With God, all things are possible.
Amen.
And we will see you in 5 years.
Yes.
Thank you, Shion and Amber. Thank you, Elena. And also thank you to all our listeners out there. Tune in again next week, Wednesday from 5 to 6 p.m. for more Total Health Live.
Be sure to check with your doctors before making any sudden life changes discussed today. Total Health is brought to you in partnership with Guam Seventh-day Adventist Clinic. Health is their mission. We look forward to seeing you next Wednesday. Thank you and si Juas Masi for listening to Total Health right here on Joy FM.